The desert stretched endlessly under two burning suns. Waves of heat rose from the yellow sand, making the horizon dance like liquid fire. A lone human traveler walked slowly, his boots sinking into the soft ground. His lips were dry, his skin was sunburnt, and his water flask felt almost empty. Every step was heavy, but he pushed forward. He had crossed many planets before, but this desert was different. It was quiet. Too quiet. No sound of birds, no rustle of wind. Only silence broken by the crunch of his own steps. His heart beat faster with every mile. He knew deserts always hid secrets, and sometimes those secrets were deadly. As he moved past a cluster of sharp black rocks, he stopped. Something caught his eye. At first it looked like a pile of rags lying half buried in the sand. But then it moved. Slowly. Weakly. The traveler squinted, raising a hand to shield his eyes from the sun. It wasn't cloth. It was a body. Cautiously, he walked closer. The figure on the ground was not human. It was small, fragile-looking, with pale green skin that shimmered faintly in the sunlight. Long ridges ran across its head, and its chest rose and fell in shallow breaths. The alien's eyes, large, golden, and cracked with dryness, opened halfway. The human froze. His instincts told him to be careful. He was alone on an alien world. Helping the wrong creature could bring trouble. Maybe it was a trap. Maybe the rest of its kind was watching, waiting to strike. He looked around, scanning the dunes. Nothing moved. Only silence. The alien's lips trembled. A faint sound escaped, broken and weak. W! Water. The human's grip tightened on his flask. Water was life here, and he didn't have much left. His throat ached, reminding him of his own need. He hesitated. His mind whispered warnings. Keep it. Save yourself. Walk away. But his heart remembered something else. The fear in the alien's eyes was the same fear he had once felt when stranded in a desert on Earth. He had prayed for a drop of water then, and someone had given it to him. Could he now deny the same to another being, no matter how strange? With a slow breath, he knelt down. The alien tried to lift its hand, but it shook and fell back weakly. The traveler unscrewed his flask and poured a little into the alien's mouth. The creature's throat moved desperately, swallowing every drop. The change was instant. Its golden eyes widened, glowing faintly brighter. A shiver ran through its body, and a whisper of life returned to its face. More, it croaked. The human hesitated again. His flask was light and the desert was long. But he gave a little more. The alien's breathing steadied. Its cracked lips softened, and tears, clear and shining, rolled down its cheeks. It raised its trembling hand and touched the human's wrist. Thank you. The words were broken but filled with raw emotion. The traveler felt a strange weight settle in his chest. Something about the way the alien looked at him, like he had done more than just save a life, made him uneasy. He stood quickly, glancing around. The dunes stretched endlessly, but suddenly he didn't feel alone. The wind picked up, carrying with it a sound. Faint, distant, a low rumbling growl. His heart skipped a beat. He turned toward the sound. It echoed across the sand, deep and powerful, like the roar of a beast too large to imagine. The alien on the ground stirred, fear flashing across its face. Its eyes darted to the horizon, then back at the human. The traveler felt the hairs on his neck rise. Something was out there, watching, waiting. He capped his flask and slung it back to his side. Rest, he whispered, though he wasn't sure if the alien understood. The creature closed its eyes, still breathing weakly, but safer now. The human stepped back, hand resting on the grip of his weapon. His gaze scanned the dunes once more. The desert was no longer silent. The growl came again, closer this time, and with it the feeling that by giving water, he had started something far greater than he could understand. The suns dipped lower, painting the sky in red fire. Shadows stretched long across the sand. The traveler's heart pounded, knowing night would bring more than cold winds. Somewhere in the distance, another roar answered the first, louder, stronger. The human's jaw tightened. He didn't know what he had stepped into. But deep inside, he knew this desert would not let him leave so easily. And as darkness crept across the horizon, he realized the story had only just begun. The desert changed when the sun sank below the horizon. Heat faded and a chill spread across the endless dunes. The human traveler sat near a small fire he had built from dry thorn bushes. The flames crackled weakly, giving little warmth but enough light to keep the darkness at bay. Beside the fire, the alien child lay wrapped in a spare cloth. Its breathing was steadier now, though shallow. Every so often, its golden eyes fluttered open, glowing faintly in the night. The human gave it another sip of water and then leaned back, staring at the sky. Above him, 2 moons hung pale and cold. Stars spread across the heavens like glittering dust. It should have been peaceful, but it wasn't. The desert was alive now. Strange sounds floated on the cold wind. Soft whistles, distant howls, and the shifting of sand as if unseen creatures crawled beneath the surface. The human's hand rested on his weapon, ready at any moment. Suddenly, a deep roar broke the night. It rolled across the dunes, low and powerful, making the sand tremble beneath his boots. The alien stirred, eyes snapping open in fear. It whispered something in its own tongue, a word filled with terror. The traveler frowned. "What is it?" he asked softly, even though he knew the alien wouldn't understand. The child pointed a shaking hand toward the dunes, then covered its face with both arms as though hiding from something unseen. The human stood, squinting into the darkness. At first there was nothing, only rolling sand under moonlight. But then, movement. A shadow shifted on a far ridge, large and slow. Then another. Then 2 more. Shapes that walked with the grace of predators. His throat went dry. They looked like massive cats, their eyes glinting in the moonlight. Their growls echoed across the desert as they prowled closer, their heavy paws sinking into the sand without sound. The fire crackled louder as if nervous itself. The traveler tightened his grip on his weapon, but he did not fire. He knew better. Predators always tested first, always watched before striking. One of the great beasts roared again, the sound so strong it made the flames flicker and the alien child whimper. The human's mind raced. He had seen wild animals on many worlds, but never like these. They moved like tigers, yet larger, stronger, and glowing faintly under the moonlight. And there were too many. Fighting them would be suicide. He took a step back, shielding the alien with his body. His heart pounded, but his eyes never left the ridge. Then something strange happened. The beast did not attack. They stood at the ridge, staring down at him as if judging him. Their tails swayed slowly, their eyes burning with intelligence. It felt less like animals and more like guardians, watching, measuring. The traveler's breath quickened. He realized these creatures were not just predators. They were part of something greater, and they were here because of him. The alien child made a sound, soft and fearful. It reached for the human's arm, clinging tightly. The traveler knelt beside it, whispering, "Quiet now. You're safe." But he wasn't sure of that at all. Minutes stretched like hours. The beasts did not move closer, but their roars carried across the desert like warnings. Then as suddenly as they had appeared, they turned. One by one, they slipped back into the dunes, vanishing into the shadows. Only their glowing eyes lingered for a moment longer before fading away. Silence returned. But it was not the same silence as before. This one was heavier, filled with the promise of something yet to come. The human sat back down, his chest tight with unease. He had traveled many strange lands, but never had he felt so small under the weight of unseen eyes. The alien child finally spoke, its words broken but desperate. No, they come." The traveler frowned. "Who comes?" he asked. The child's eyes glowed brighter and it whispered a single word. "Tribe." The fire snapped, sending sparks into the night. The human stared into the flames, his thoughts racing. He had given water to a dying child, a simple act of kindness, yet now powerful beasts watched him and a mysterious tribe was on its way. He looked at the child. Its gaze was full of both fear and hope. He understood then. By saving it, he had tied himself to something far bigger than he could imagine. As the cold wind howled, he pulled his cloak tighter around his shoulders. His mind replayed the roars, the glowing eyes, and the word the alien had spoken. Tribe. The traveler didn't sleep that night. Every whisper of sand, every distant growl kept him awake. He knew the desert had marked him. He was no longer just a traveler here. He had stepped into a story older than himself, and as the moon sank lower, painting the dunes in silver shadows, he realized one truth. When morning came, his life would never be the same. The first rays of dawn spilled across the desert, painting the dunes in soft gold. The human traveler stood at the edge of his camp, staring at the horizon. His eyes burned from lack of sleep. Every sound from the night still echoed in his ears. The growls, the whispers of the sand, the alien child's fearful word. Tribe. The child stirred beside the fire, weak but alive. Its golden eyes blinked slowly, and for the first time it managed to sit up. It pointed toward the horizon where the sun's light broke over the dunes. The human followed its gaze. At first he saw only heat waves and drifting sand. But then the ground began to tremble. Faint at first, then stronger. Thump, thump, thump. The sound grew louder, like drums buried beneath the desert floor. The traveler's pulse quickened. He placed a protective hand on the alien child's shoulder, and then he saw them. From beyond the dunes, shapes appeared. Dozens, maybe more. They rose like shadows against the sun, moving with grace and power. As they drew closer, the shapes became clear. Tigers. Massive, striped beasts with fur that shimmered under the morning light. Each one carried a rider. Aliens clad in armor of bone and leather, their faces painted with strange markings. Spears glinted in their hands, and banners of woven cloth flapped in the wind. The traveler's mouth went dry. The child had spoken true. The tribe had come. The roar of the tigers filled the desert as they charged down the dunes. Sand exploded under their paws. The riders shouted in a language harsh and rhythmic. It was not a simple group, it was a war party. The human's hand tightened on his weapon, but he did not raise it. He knew what it would mean. One wrong move and he would be torn apart before he could even fire a shot. The child, however, did not look afraid. It pulled itself to its feet, swaying weakly. With trembling arms, it raised its hands toward the riders. Its golden eyes glowed brighter. The tribe slowed. The thunder of paws softened. The riders circled the camp in a wide ring, their beasts growling and snapping their jaws. Dust swirled around them, hiding the sun and turning the desert into a whirl of shadows. The traveler stood tall, his cloak whipping in the wind. He could feel their eyes on him, sharp, cold, and questioning. One rider dismounted. The tiger it rode lowered its head, bearing long white fangs. The rider stepped forward with steady grace. It was tall, its skin the same pale green as the child's, but its armor was covered in feathers and bones. Its eyes glowed brighter than the rest, sharp as blades. It looked at the child first. A long pause. Then slowly, it bent down and touched the child's forehead. Relief flickered across its face. The traveler let out a breath he didn't know he was holding. But then the rider turned its gaze on him. The weight of that stare hit harder than any weapon. The traveler felt his heart pound in his chest. He stood still, refusing to show fear. The rider raised a hand. At once, the circle of tigers roared in unison. The sound shook the desert, echoing for miles. The human swallowed hard. This was not a meeting. This was a judgment. The alien child suddenly cried out, its voice breaking through the noise. It pointed at the human, shouting words the traveler could not understand. But the tone was clear, pleading, desperate. The rider froze. The circle went silent. Only the hiss of the wind remained. Then something unexpected happened. The riders all dismounted at once. One by one, they lowered their weapons and knelt in the sand, bowing their heads. The massive tigers lay down, their glowing eyes never leaving the human. The traveler's stomach tightened. He did not understand. Why would warriors bow to him? The rider who had first stepped forward approached again. This time its movements were slower, more deliberate. It stopped a few feet away and touched its chest with a clenched fist. Then it spoke a single word in its tongue heavy with meaning. The child translated weakly, voice trembling. Chosen. The human's eyes widened. The rider gestured to the horizon. More figures appeared, riding in formation. At their center was a tall alien woman, unlike any the traveler had ever seen. She sat atop the largest tiger, her clothing shimmering with silver threads, her face painted in ceremonial patterns. The air grew heavy, as if the desert itself was holding its breath. The warriors lowered their heads as she passed. She carried no weapon, only a jug made of crystal glowing faintly with light. The traveler understood nothing, yet felt everything. His act of kindness, a simple gift of water, had stirred something ancient in this tribe. Something sacred. The woman's eyes locked on his. Calm, fierce, unyielding. And as she rode closer, the traveler realized one truth. He was no longer just a stranger in the desert. He was part of their story now. The desert wind carried silence as the woman rode closer. Her tiger moved like flowing shadow, muscles rippling beneath striped fur. Every step sank into the sand with heavy grace. The alien warriors bowed their heads deeper, and the child beside the traveler trembled with awe. The human stood still. His heart thumped in his chest, each beat loud in his ears. He had faced soldiers, storms, and battles on many worlds. But this moment felt different, sacred, dangerous. The woman dismounted without a sound. The great beast lowered itself as if humbled by her presence. She walked forward with calm confidence, her silver-threaded clothing shimmering in the sun. Her skin glowed faintly green, her markings painted in deep red lines that traced across her arms and face. Her eyes, bright, sharp, golden, never left his. In her hands she carried a jug of crystal. It pulsed with faint light, as though it held something more than liquid inside. She stopped a few steps away and raised the jug high, her voice strong and clear. The words were alien, impossible for him to understand, but the sound carried weight, as if every syllable was carved from tradition and law. The warriors echoed her cry, pounding fists against their chests in unison. The ground shook with their rhythm. The traveler's hand brushed the grip of his weapon, though he knew firing now would mean death. He forced himself to stand firm. The woman stepped closer, holding out the jug toward him. The glow inside shimmered like liquid stars. The traveler frowned. He glanced at the alien child, who was now smiling weakly, as though this moment meant everything. "What is this?" he muttered under his breath. The child's voice was hoarse, but the meaning was clear. "Gift, sacred water." The human's stomach twisted. Water was life in this desert, rarer than gold, more valuable than weapons. He had given a few drops from his flask to a dying child. And now this. This was something far greater. But the child wasn't finished. It struggled to its feet, pointing at the woman. "She, daughter, leader, bride." The word struck him like a hammer. His eyes widened. He looked at the woman again, then at the jug glowing in her hands. Bride. The air grew heavier. The warrior's eyes glowed with expectation. Even the tigers seemed to watch in silence, their tails swaying slowly. The human's throat went dry. He had saved a child. Nothing more. Now this tribe believed he had earned something impossible, a bond with their leader's daughter. The woman lowered the jug and set it carefully in the sand. Then, with graceful movements, she pressed her hand to her chest, bowing slightly. Her gaze never broke. The human felt a rush of unease. This was no casual offer. It was ritual, law. To refuse might mean insult. To accept might mean chains. He shook his head, stepping back. "No, you don't understand. I didn't do this for marriage." The child translated quickly, its voice stumbling, yet the meaning was clear enough. The words spread through the circle of riders. Murmurs rose. The warriors' expression shifted. Some looked shocked, others angry. A few tightened grips on their spears. The woman straightened. Her golden eyes narrowed, not in anger, but in deep focus, as though measuring his soul. She stepped forward again, close enough that he could see the faint glow of her skin beneath the markings. She spoke softly, her voice calm yet firm. The child whispered the translation, each word heavy. "Water is bond. Water is vow. You gave life. You are chosen." The human clenched his jaw. He felt the weight of dozens of eyes pressing on him, demanding his choice. He looked at the jug, shining, sacred, untouchable. Then at the woman, who stood tall and unshaken. He wanted to say no, to walk away, but the desert was merciless. Alone, he would not survive long. Surrounded by this tribe, refusing could mean death. The tension rose. Warriors shifted uneasily. Tigers growled low, the sound rumbling through the sand. The human could almost taste the danger in the air. His hand brushed the flask at his side, the one he had shared with the child. The memory came back, sharp and clear, the way those golden eyes had looked at him with gratitude. He had given water because it was the right thing to do. But here it meant something more, something binding. The woman extended her hand now, palm open, waiting. Her expression was unreadable. It was not romance, not affection, it was duty. A law older than time. The traveler's mind raced. If he accepted, he would be tied to them forever. If he refused, blood would spill. The desert wind howled, carrying sand across the circle. The fire of dawn lit her face, turning her golden eyes into burning suns. The human stood frozen between two paths, one of unity, one of violence, and as silence stretched, he realized that this moment was not just about him. It was about worlds colliding. The desert air grew heavy as if the dunes themselves waited for his answer. The human traveler stood frozen, the alien woman's open hand before him, the glowing jug at her side. Around them, the tribe held their breath, warriors tense, tigers crouched low with eyes like burning coals. He could feel it, the weight of their stares, the unspoken demand. One choice and he would belong to them. Another choice and he might not live to see another sunrise. The woman's hand did not waver. Her golden eyes held no softness, only duty. The child beside him whispered, voice shaking, "Say yes, or they fight." The traveler clenched his fists. He had crossed many worlds, but none had ever put him in a trap like this. His act of kindness, just water to a dying child, was being turned into chains. His chest tightened with anger. "I'm not yours," he said firmly, his voice sharp against the desert wind. "I didn't ask for this." The child repeated his words, stumbling over the language. The effect was instant. A ripple of shock ran through the circle. Warriors hissed, their painted faces twisting in fury. Spears lifted, points glinting in the rising sun. The tigers growled, tails lashing the sand. The alien woman's face did not change. She stood tall, her hand still outstretched, though her eyes grew colder. She spoke, her voice calm yet dangerous. The child translated, trembling. "To refuse is to insult. To insult is war." The traveler's heart pounded. He stepped back, his hand moving toward his weapon. His instincts screamed to fight. But reason whispered, fight here and he would die. There were too many, too strong. "Listen," he shouted, raising his voice. He gestured to the child who looked at him with wide, fearful eyes. "I gave water because it was right. Not because I wanted power. Not because I wanted marriage. I don't belong to your laws." The child hesitated, then translated as best it could. His words rippled through the tribe. Anger flared. Warriors shouted, their voices like thunder. One rider spurred his tiger forward, roaring in rage. The beast leapt, sand flying beneath its paws. The traveler's weapon was in his hand before he thought. He fired once into the sand at the tiger's feet. The sound cracked like lightning. The tiger skidded to a halt, its roar shaking the air. The rider pulled back, startled. The tribe gasped, their voices falling silent. The traveler stood tall, weapon still smoking. "I don't want war," he said, his voice steady. "But I will not be forced." The child translated quickly, its voice breaking under the weight of the words. The warriors murmured again, but this time with caution. They had seen his weapon, heard its thunder. The woman's golden eyes narrowed, but for the first time something shifted in them. Not anger, but thought. She raised her hand, silencing the tribe. The tigers calmed, their growls fading into low rumbles. Slowly, she lowered her arm and stepped closer to the traveler. "You are strong," she said in her own tongue, voice calm but sharp as a blade. The child translated, "Strong, but foolish." The human's jaw tightened. "Maybe," he said, "but free." The woman studied him for a long moment. Then she turned, lifting the jug of glowing water. She held it high and the warriors bowed their heads again. Her voice rose, echoing across the desert. The child's translation came slowly, halting but enough. "He refuses, yet he is chosen. His fate bound to us. Not by vow, but by fire." The tribe roared in answer. Spears clashed against shields, tigers roared to the sky, the sound shaking the dunes. The human felt his skin prickle with unease. He did not understand their ritual, but he knew this was not the end. The woman looked at him once more, her gaze fierce. Then she placed the jug at his feet. The glowing water shimmered, pulsing faintly as though alive. The meaning was clear. Even if he refused her hand, he could not escape their bond. The traveler stared at the jug. He had come to this desert as a wanderer alone. Now he stood at the heart of something ancient and dangerous. A clash between freedom and tradition, between his world and theirs. The tribe began to chant, their voices rising in rhythm with the thundering paws of the tigers. The sound shook him to his core. It was not anger anymore, it was prophecy. And in that moment he understood. This was not over. This was only the beginning. The desert sun climbed higher, burning bright. Shadows stretched across the sand. The human lifted his eyes, meeting the woman's unyielding gaze. Two worlds stood face to face, neither willing to bend. A clash was coming. A clash of laws. A clash of survival. A clash of worlds. The desert gave way to green. The traveler had expected only more dunes, more endless sand. But the tribe led him through a narrow canyon where stone walls rose like jagged teeth. At the end, the land opened wide, and there it was, a hidden valley. He stopped, breath catching in his chest. Before him stretched a world of jungle and water. Tall trees with silver leaves rose into the sky. Vines hung heavy with glowing fruit, and streams of clear water cut through the earth, sparkling in the light. The tigers padded silently through the grass, their riders guiding them with ease. Birds with crystal wings darted overhead, their calls sharp and strange. The air smelled alive, wet earth, wild flowers, and something electric. The human could hardly believe this existed beneath the desert he had crossed. The alien woman, the leader's daughter, rode at the front, her tiger's paws silent on the grass. She did not look at him, but her presence was like a blade, sharp and steady. The child he had saved rode with her, held carefully by another rider. The traveler walked on foot, surrounded by warriors. He could feel their eyes on him. Distrust, respect, fear, all mixed into one. They brought him to the center of the valley, where stone pillars rose from the ground, carved with symbols that glowed faintly in the shadows. At the heart of the circle was a pool of water unlike anything he had ever seen. It shimmered not with sunlight, but with its own light, glowing softly like liquid stars. The tribe dismounted and bowed low before the pool. Even the tigers lowered their heads, tails sweeping the grass. The traveler stood stiff, uneasy. He felt like an intruder in a sacred place. The woman stepped forward, filling a bowl from the glowing pool. She lifted it high, chanting words in her language. The sound echoed through the valley, deep and rhythmic as though the earth itself was answering. The child tugged weakly at the traveler's sleeve, whispering translation. "This is first water, source of life, gift of sky. Only tribe may drink." The traveler's eyes narrowed. First water. The glowing liquid in her jug had come from here, and he understood now. By giving his own plain water to the child, he had crossed into their law. He had given what only they considered sacred. He had broken a rule he never knew existed. The woman turned, her eyes locking on his. She lowered the bowl, stepping closer. The child translated again. Water is bond. Who gives it? Gives life. Who gives life? Belongs. The words weighed heavy in his chest. He hadn't just saved a life. He had stepped into a covenant older than himself, older than his people. The woman pointed to the glowing pool, her expression fierce. She spoke with sharp precision. The child whispered, "Now, you must drink." The traveler's stomach tightened. He looked at the pool, its surface rippling with pale light. It called to him tempting and dangerous, but something in his gut warned him. To drink would mean more than quenching thirst. It would mean binding. He shook his head. No, the child's face fell. It hesitated, then translated. The tribe gasped, voices rising in angry murmurs. Warriors gripped their spears tighter. The tigers growled, their eyes glowing in the half-light. The woman did not flinch. She stepped closer, holding the bowl out toward him. Her golden eyes burned like fire. She spoke a single word. The child whispered, voice shaking. Fate. The human clenched his jaw. He had felt trapped before in the desert. But now in this hidden valley he understood the depth of it. His act of kindness had become a thread in their sacred web, and they would not let him cut it. Still he refused to bow. His voice was steady even as his pulse raced. I will not drink. The words carried no weight to them, but his defiance did. The tribe's anger rose like a storm. The woman's eyes narrowed. She did not shout. She did not threaten. Instead, she turned and poured the glowing water back into the pool. Then she spoke again, her voice calm and unyielding. The child translated with trembling lips. If not by vow, then by battle. Others will come. They will test you. If you live, fate is true. If you die, fate is broken. The traveler's stomach turned cold. Others, rival tribes? Enemies? The child nodded weakly, as if reading his thoughts. They want her, they want first water, now they want you. The valley fell silent. The jungle around them whispered in the wind, leaves rustling like whispers of ghosts. The traveler stared into the glowing pool, his reflection broken by ripples of light. He had wanted only to survive the desert. Now he was bound to a war he did not understand, to a people he did not belong to a law older than the stars. And as the tribe began to chant again, Their voices rising like thunder, he realized the truth. His kindness had become a weapon. And soon, the whole world would know his name. The valley held its breath. The human traveler stood in the circle of stone pillars, the glowing pool before him, the alien tribe surrounding him like shadows. Their chants had faded into silence, leaving only the hiss of the wind through silver leaves. The alien woman, the leader's daughter, watched him with golden eyes that burned like fire. He felt every gaze press against him. Warriors with painted faces, tigers with glowing eyes, even the child he had saved, all waiting. Waiting for his choice. The child whispered softly, fear in its voice. They believe. You are chosen. If you accept, you unite worlds. If you refuse, you bring war. The traveler clenched his fists. He had never asked for this. He had only given water, yet here he stood bound by a law older than his people. His chest tightened with frustration. He looked at the woman. She stood proud, unbending, her hand resting lightly on the glowing jug at her side. She was not asking. She was declaring. To her tribe, his fate was already decided, but inside him burned something different. Something human. The belief that choice was sacred, that no tradition or law could chain a free will. I won't be forced, he said firmly, his voice echoing off the stone. The child translated quickly, its words trembling in the air. A wave of anger rippled through the warriors. Spears lifted. Tigers growled, their rumbling growls shaking the earth. The woman raised her hand, silencing them. Her gaze never left his. She spoke calmly, each word sharp as a blade. The child translated with wide, frightened eyes. If you walk away, blood will fall. If you stay, you become more than man. You become bridge. Between us and your kind. The traveler's chest tightened. A bridge. The weight of those words sank deep. He thought of Earth, of the people he had left behind. He thought of deserts he had crossed, wars he had seen, and strangers who had become friends through small acts of kindness. Was this what it meant to be human? To step into the unknown, not for power, but for connection? Yet another thought gnawed at him. If he said yes, he would lose himself. His freedom. His identity. He would no longer be just a man. He would be theirs. The silence stretched, heavy and unbearable. Finally, he spoke. I gave water because it was right. Not because of law. Not because of destiny. Because life is precious. The child's voice broke as it translated. The tribe listened, their expressions unreadable. The warriors shifted uneasily. Some showed anger, others awe. The woman stepped closer, her golden eyes inches from his. She whispered in her tongue, her voice low but intense. The child hesitated before translating. Then choose. Not for law. Not for us. For yourself. Drink or walk away. But no. Both paths change everything. The traveler's heartbeat thundered in his ears. The glowing pool rippled at his feet, light spilling across the stone like living fire. His reflection shimmered, broken and uncertain. He imagined drinking, accepting the bond, becoming part of them. His name would echo through their stories, binding his fate to theirs. Humanity would not just be a rumor in this desert, it would be a legend. But he also imagined refusing, walking away into the dunes free but hunted, carrying only his defiance. The tribe would not forgive. War would follow. Blood would stain the sand. Both choices felt like chains, yet both were his. The child looked at him with pleading eyes. The woman stood strong, unwavering. The tribe waited, their silence louder than thunder. The traveler slowly knelt. He reached for the glowing jug. Gasps rippled through the circle. Warriors leaned forward. Tigers growled low. The air itself seemed to crackle. His hand hovered above it. His fingers touched the cool crystal. The light pulsed as though alive, beating like a second heart. And then he stopped. His hand froze. He lifted his eyes, meeting the woman's fierce gaze. His voice was steady, though his soul trembled. My choice is mine. Not yours. Not your law. Not your fate. Mine. The child's translation rang out clear and final. The silence that followed was unbearable. Then the valley erupted. Warriors roared, tigers bared their fangs, spears clashed against shields. The earth shook beneath the weight of their fury. The woman's face remained unreadable. She did not flinch. She only stared at him, as if his defiance had confirmed what she already knew. The traveler rose to his feet, his hand falling away from the jug. His choice had been spoken, though its cost had yet to be revealed. Above them, the sky darkened. Clouds gathered unnaturally fast, swirling in a spiral. Lightning flashed across the heavens, painting the valley in silver light. The child gasped. The sky, it answers. The gods, they watch. The traveler looked up, his jaw tight. He did not know if gods existed here, but he knew this storm was no accident. The world itself had heard his choice, and it would not let him walk away so easily.